When my husband walked out that night, I did not scream. I did not beg him to stay. I did not even cry right away. I stood in the doorway with my hand resting on the doorframe, listening to the sound of his footsteps fade down the hallway. Each step felt like it was landing inside my chest instead of on the floor. I remember thinking how quiet the house suddenly felt. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes your ears ring. I had just come back from the hospital that afternoon. My body was weak, my heart was tired, and my spirit felt thin, like it had been stretched too far for too long. That was the night I needed him the most, and that was the night he chose to leave. I did not know then that this moment would change the rest of my life. I only knew that I was standing alone in a house that still smelled like his cologne, wondering how love could disappear so quickly when pain arrived. My husband and I had been married for 26 years. Not the kind of marriage people write songs about, but a steady one. Quiet. Predictable. We met when I was young and hopeful, and he was already tired of life. He liked that I smiled easily. I liked that he felt safe. We built our life slowly, one paycheck at a time, one argument at a time, one apology at a time. We raised 2 children in that house. I cooked most of the meals. He paid most of the bills. I was never a loud woman. I did not ask for much. I thought that if I stayed calm and grateful, love would stay. For a long time, it did. But looking back now, I see the cracks were always there. I just learned how to step around them. It started with tiredness, the kind of tiredness sleep does not fix. I would sit at the kitchen table after breakfast and feel like I had already lived a full day. Some mornings, even holding a cup of tea felt heavy in my hands. I told my husband once, quietly, "I don't feel like myself anymore." He nodded without looking up from his phone. "You're getting older," he said. "We all are." I believed him. I wanted to believe him. So I pushed myself harder. I cooked. I cleaned. I smiled at family gatherings. But my body was already asking for help. I just did not know how to listen yet. The diagnosis came on a Tuesday. Hospitals always feel colder on Tuesdays. The doctor spoke gently, but the words still landed hard. Chronic illness, long-term care, uncertainty. I nodded like I understood, but inside everything was shaking. When I told my husband that evening, he sat very still. Too still. "So this won't just go away?" he asked. "No," I said softly, "it won't." He did not say anything else. He stood up, went to the bedroom, and closed the door. That was the first time I felt truly alone, even though he was still in the house. After that, he changed in quiet ways. He stayed out longer, he spoke less. When I asked for help, he sighed before answering. Not loudly, just enough for me to notice. I started apologizing for being sick. I didn't even realize I was doing it. "I'm sorry I can't cook tonight. I'm sorry I need to rest. I'm sorry I'm not strong." He never said it was okay. He just nodded and moved on. Love does not always leave loudly. Sometimes it slowly steps back until you're reaching into empty space. The night he left, I had fallen in the bathroom earlier that day. Nothing broken, just shaken. The doctor said I needed rest, support, someone nearby. When we got home, I sat on the couch wrapped in a blanket. The house smelled like rain through the open window. "I can't do this," my husband said suddenly. I looked up at him. "Do what?" "This," he said, waving his hand. "The sickness, the care, the waiting." I waited for him to soften his words. He didn't. "I need peace," he said, "and I can't find it here anymore." I nodded slowly, not because I agreed, but because my heart was too tired to argue. He packed a bag. He did not look back. And just like that, my lowest moment became my loneliest one. I sat there for a long time after he left, listening to the clock tick, counting my breaths. I was sick, I was scared, and I was alone. But somewhere beneath the sadness, something else was forming. A quiet strength. Not loud, not brave, just enough to survive the night. The first morning without him felt unreal. I woke up expecting to hear his footsteps in the hallway, the kettle boiling, the sound of the newspaper unfolding. Instead, there was only silence. I lay in bed longer than usual, staring at the ceiling. My body felt heavy, like it was pressed into the mattress, not just from sickness, but from the weight of being left behind. When I finally stood up, my legs trembled. I held onto the wall as I walked to the kitchen. Every step reminded me that I was no longer someone's responsibility. The house looked the same, but it felt empty in a new way. Not peaceful, just hollow. His shoes were gone from the doorway. His mug was still on the counter. I picked it up and held it for a moment. Then I put it back exactly where it was. I was not ready to erase him yet. I made myself a simple breakfast. I barely touched it. Food has a way of losing meaning when your heart is tired. As days passed, my illness became harder to manage alone. Simple tasks took longer. Washing dishes felt like climbing a hill. Some afternoons I sat on the floor because the couch felt too far away. I would rest there quietly until my strength returned. I did not cry loudly. I cried in small moments, when the lid of a jar would not open, when I dropped something and could not bend down fast enough. These were not big tragedies, but together they added up. I waited for my husband to call. At first, every hour, then every day. I told myself he just needed time, space, peace. But the phone stayed silent. When it did ring, it was usually a reminder from the clinic or a message asking if I could still attend a family event. I stopped answering most calls. Explaining my pain felt harder than staying quiet. Our children came to visit once. They sat stiffly on the sofa, unsure of what to say. "Dad said you're strong," my son said gently. "He said you'll manage." I smiled at him. That was easier than explaining the truth. My daughter held my hand tightly. Her eyes searched my face. "Why didn't he stay?" she asked softly. I did not have an answer. So I said the only thing that felt safe. Sometimes people leave when they are afraid. Nights stretched longer than days. Pain feels louder in the dark. I slept with a lamp on just to feel less alone. Sometimes I spoke out loud just to hear a human voice. "I'll be okay," I would whisper, even when I wasn't sure. The bed felt too big. The empty side stayed cold. I learned how loneliness can sit quietly beside you without making a sound. With nothing to distract me, memories came back. Not all bad, some warm. Our early years, his laugh when the children were small, the way he used to bring me tea without asking. I wondered when that man had disappeared, or if I simply stopped seeing him. I blamed myself often, for getting sick, for needing help. Even now, that thought still hurts. One afternoon, my neighbor knocked on the door. She held a small container of soup. "I haven't seen your husband," she said carefully. "Is everything okay?" I hesitated. Then I nodded. "Just adjusting," I said. She did not press. She placed the soup in my hands and smiled kindly. That simple kindness stayed with me longer than she knew. As weeks passed, I had no choice but to ask for help. From my children, from neighbors, from strangers at the clinic. Each time felt like admitting failure. But slowly, I learned something important. Needing help did not make me weak. It meant I was human. Still, at night, I wondered why the one person who promised to stay was the one who left. One evening, as rain tapped gently against the window, I sat alone at the dining table. The same table where we once ate as a family. I realized something then, not with anger, just clarity. My husband did not leave because I was sick. He left because he could not carry pain that was not his own. That understanding did not heal me, but it helped me breathe. The letter arrived on a quiet morning. No warning, no return address that meant anything to me. I held it in my hands for a long time before opening it. Something about it made my chest feel tight. Inside, there were only a few lines. Short, carefully written. He said he needed distance. He said he was not built for this kind of life. He said he hoped I would understand. There was no apology, no question about my health, just a goodbye that felt unfinished. I expected to cry when I read it. I expected pain to rush in all at once. But it didn't. Instead, I felt still, like something heavy had finally been set down. For weeks, I had been waiting for him to come back, waiting for love to return. That letter told me quietly that waiting was over. A few days later, I had another appointment. This time, I went alone. The waiting room smelled the same. Disinfectant and old magazines. I watched couples sit together, hands folded, shoulders touching. I felt a small ache in my chest, but I also felt something new. Pride. I was still here, still breathing, still standing. The doctor spoke gently, as always. He talked about treatment, about long days ahead. But this time, I listened differently. Before, I had listened with fear. Now, I listened with resolve. "I'll manage," I said quietly. And for the first time, I believed myself. That evening, my daughter came over. She helped me fold laundry. We worked in silence for a while. Then she spoke. "Mom," she said, "you don't deserve what he did." Her words landed softly, but firmly. I looked at her and smiled. "I know," I said. Saying that out loud felt like a door opening inside me. That night, I sat alone again. But the loneliness felt different. I thought about all the apologies I had made, for being sick, for needing rest. I realized something painful but freeing. Love should not leave when life becomes hard, and sickness is not a failure. I placed my hand on my chest and took a slow breath. "I did nothing wrong," I whispered. The words felt strange, but they stayed. The call came weeks later, unexpected. I recognized his number immediately. My heart did not race. "Hello," I said calmly. His voice sounded tired, uncertain. "I just wanted to check on you," he said. There was a pause. "I heard you've been managing?" I nodded, even though he could not see me. "Yes," I said, "I have." He spoke about stress, fear, feeling trapped. I listened quietly. Then, gently, I spoke. "I needed you, not to fix me, just to stay." He was silent for a long moment. "I couldn't," he said finally. I did not argue. I did not beg. "I understand," I said. And I truly did. There was no dramatic goodbye, just a shared understanding. We were not the same people anymore, and we could not walk the same road. When the call ended, I placed the phone down carefully. My hands were steady. I felt sadness, but not despair. That was the moment everything changed. Not when he left, not when the letter arrived, But when I realized I could survive without being chosen, I was still sick, still uncertain, but I was no longer abandoned inside myself. After that phone call, life did not suddenly become easier. My illness did not disappear. The days were still long, but something inside me had shifted. I stopped measuring my strength by what I could do for others. I started listening to my body without apology. If I needed to rest, I rested. If I needed help, I asked. There was no guilt in it anymore, just acceptance. I built small routines to steady my days, simple ones. Morning tea by the window, a short walk when my body allowed, soft music in the evenings. These moments became anchors. They reminded me that life could still feel gentle. Healing did not come in big changes. It came quietly. Slowly, the house changed, not physically, but emotionally. I moved his old chair away from the window, not out of anger, just to make space. I placed a small plant on the table, something alive. The house no longer felt like a place I was left behind in. It felt like a place I was learning to stay. People asked if I had forgiven him, their voices always careful. I did not answer right away. Forgiveness, I learned, is not something you force. It grows when you are ready. Some days I felt peace. Other days, sadness returned, and I allowed both. One afternoon, I wrote him a letter. Not to send, just to release what was inside. I wrote about fear, about loneliness, about nights when pain kept me awake. I did not accuse, I did not beg. I ended the letter with honesty. I hope you find peace, I wrote, and I hope one day you understand what you left behind. I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. That was enough. Over time, my children began to see me differently, not as someone fragile, but as someone steady. They checked in often, not out of worry, but out of love. Our conversations deepened. There was honesty between us now. Pain had opened a door, and understanding walked through it. Joy returned slowly, in small forms. Laughter during a shared meal, sunlight warming my face, a song that made me hum without thinking. These moments did not erase the past, but they reminded me that life still held beauty. I still thought of my husband sometimes, not with anger, just with memory. I wondered if he was okay, if he had found what he was looking for. But I no longer wondered why I wasn't enough. That question had lost its power. Strength came quietly, not as bravery, but as endurance. I learned how to sit with pain without letting it define me, how to face uncertainty without running. I learned that staying takes courage too, even when others leave. Now, when I look back on that time, I do not feel the sharp pain I once did. The memories are still there, but they no longer hurt the same way. They feel distant, like a story I once lived, but do not live anymore. I remember the woman I was then, scared, tired, holding herself together with silence, and I feel tenderness for her. I learned that love is not just about staying when things are easy. It is about choosing someone when life becomes heavy. When love leaves at the first sign of struggle, it was never meant to last. And that truth, while painful, is also freeing. I no longer question my worth because someone could not stay. I learned that strength does not always look like standing tall. Sometimes it looks like resting, like asking for help, like waking up and trying again. I learned that I could carry my own heart, even when it felt fragile, and that was something no one could take away from me. The house is quiet now, but it is a peaceful quiet. I sit by the window in the evenings, watching the light change. I breathe slowly. I feel present. This home no longer holds abandonment. It holds survival and growth. If you are listening to this and feeling left behind, I want you to know something. Being left does not mean you are unlovable. Being sick does not make you a burden. Needing support does not make you weak. Sometimes people leave because they cannot face their own fear, not because you failed. My husband walked out at my lowest moment, but I stayed. I stayed with myself, through pain, through uncertainty, and that choice changed everything. Life is still uncertain. My health still has its challenges, but my heart is steady. I wake up each day with gratitude for what remains, for what I have become, and that is enough. If there is one thing I would leave you with, it is this. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stay. When others walk away, when life feels heavy, when your heart feels tired, stay with yourself. You are worth it. If this story of finding your foundation in the rubble resonated with you, share your thoughts below. For more stories of quiet strength, subscribe to Real Queens of Courage. Thank you for listening.